of our faith, right? But we don't exercise it. So how can we have proof? How can we accept and believe, oh, that if I get fired, the Father will take care of me? When you refuse to obey His commands out of fear of being fired. Where's the proof that you're looking for? Like my dad says, if you're looking to win the lottery, you have to buy the ticket. That's the least you can do. So if you want proof of your faith, you have to at least exercise it, or you'll get nothing. And if you don't do at least that, then you're lukewarm. It's that easy to be lukewarm. Because that's what it means to be lukewarm. So everyone who hears these words of mine, everyone, whether you are in the faith or not, whether you are of the devil or not, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them, they are like a foolish man who builds their house with no foundation. In Job chapter 22, verse 15. Now I asked my dad about this, about the men, the friends of Job that were talking to him. We both came to the conclusion that they spoke some truth. They used it to spear and jab at Job, thinking he was unrighteous and wicked. But they spoke some truth. We know that. But what is it to mean to hear the words of Almighty Yahweh and not do them? What does it say here? Verse 15. Do you observe the old way which wicked men have trod, that they have walked in, who were cut down before their time, whose foundations were swept away by a flood? And that's what happens in the world. Sometimes you can be running, thinking you're healthy, and the next step you take, your heart stops. Because we have not rested in the Father. When the flood came, you know, when we get all that warning in our phones about a flash flood warning, that's what it means. It comes in a sudden. Sometimes we don't see it at all. And so like a wicked man, right, who builds his house on the sand, they are cut down before their time. Before their time. The Father has appointed to every man time to die. But if you do things to cut that down, that's on you. Are we doing things like that? Pastor Isaac told me he didn't tell me, but he told everyone who stayed last afternoon, last Shabbat, that I want some more of that strawberry cheesecake cookie that Cassie made, but I'm not gonna. See, that's temperance. That's self-control. That's one of the fruits of the Spirit. Yeah. We know what's good for our bodies, but we choose sometimes to not put in what is good for our bodies. Because it tastes good, right? It tastes like Simone. But it's very easy to just be like the world. If what we are set apart, it's a job in of itself. But we have a helper that Yeshua sent for us. Now, who else does that at our job, right? They give us a job. They tell you to do this, A, B, through C, and they leave you to do it. But the Father says, here's my commandments, and here's a helper for you. The world doesn't have that. They expect you to do everything on your own. And they pay you a little money that you deserve more and send you on your way. They don't pay you for your ride on the way or on the way back. That's your own problem. But the Father provides for us the way and a helper to carry us through the way. And we have not even resisted under the blood yet. But we are complaining about losing a little job, losing a little friends, having a sneaky eye, someone looked at us, cursed at us for living right before Elohim. Is that what we're worried about? For those who are in school, Mariah, Miracle, Cassie, When all your friends are acting different and you're the one acting right before Elohim. And they ask you, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Are you going to stand before the word? Stand up for the word? Or are you going to give a shy answer and hopefully they forget it? Because it happens sometimes, right? But I know when I was in high school, when something biblical was being discussed, they know they didn't want me a part of it. They did not want to hear what I had to say. And at one time, I caught them trying to suppress the conversation when I walked in the room. I said, shh, Dean's here. Because he knows what he wants to say. He knows what has to be said. Sometimes we have to push the conversation, right, Shandon? We have to chug it along so that they can just get something. That's work. That's the work that we were ordained to do. But if we ourselves are following the wicked way, hearing and not doing, right? What did Paul say? What profit am I that you be saved, and I myself be cast away? In Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 13. Now, what does it mean, if we remember in 2 Samuel 22, verse 5, for the floods of Belial to make me afraid? Here's what it means. In 13:13 in Deuteronomy, it says, some men, sons of Belial, have gone out of your midst and led the inhabitants of their city astray, saying, let us go and serve other mighty ones whom you have not known. Those are the floods of Belial that can wash us away without knowing. That can catch our attention without us knowing. Right? See, sin starts here at the thought. And without you realizing, sometimes you're entertaining that thought. And without the next step, sometimes you're already doing whatever that thought was. We are serving, at that time, mighty ones that we don't know. What the word says? You are a slave to whom you obey. That's right. And sometimes we don't know what we're slaves to. Are we really friends with Mashiach then? But the thing is, the Father is so good because He puts steps, almost like obstacles and barriers in our hearts, in our minds, that when we're thinking, when that thought pops up, it says, no, stop thinking that. When you entertain, it says, no, stop entertaining that. And it goes on and on and on. And the Father's there always to keep us. But are we striving against the Spirit? We read in Isaiah, right? The Spirit of Almighty that drives at the flood. If He's like this, are we trying to pry His hands open so that we can get at it? Is that what we're doing? Now, we say all the time, oh, I didn't mean to. But what did the words say? The words that come out of your mouth come from your heart. So the things that you do came from your heart. Now, whose heart is in control? Whose mind is in control? That's the question. I wrote my thesis for my graduation on the mind. And it was a new idea to the world for the mind and the consciousness to be separate things. But we know that the mind of Almighty is spirit. And if His mind is in our mind, if His mind is our mind, then that is in control of our consciousness. We're not necessarily conscious of the mind itself. But that which is in control, we know that to be there, right? So if the things that we think of, the things that we entertain and things that we do, we have an excuse to say, oh, I didn't mean it. Whose mind is controlling us then? If we didn't mean it. Is it our mind? It's certainly not Almighty Yah's mind, because He strives against the flesh. The Spirit is against the works of the flesh. So whose mind is in control? Whose spirit are we a slave to when we're entertaining things that we shouldn't be? And if we do, are we then observing the old way like the wicked man have trod? And our time is cut before and our foundation swept away? Because if it's swept away, do you think we will have time, perhaps, if the Father doesn't give it to us, to rebuild that foundation? We don't know, right? Since tomorrow is not promised to anyone. Yeah. Maybe that's why it's said in Ezekiel, where you can live righteous your whole life. Yeah. But if you sin and you die in that sin, all your righteousness is forgotten. You could live on that solid foundation your whole life. But if you turn that into sin and the flood sweeps away and you die without that solid rock foundation, what would you have? Nothing. You can't rebuild that because you're dead. So we have to be careful. Because if you keep chipping away at the foundation that we have built from our youth, for my younger brothers and sisters, from our youth that we have built, and we chip it away, we don't know when the Father will take us. If He takes us away from a solid foundation or a sand foundation, we don't know. So we have to be on guard. We have to keep our eyes on the high tower, in our refuge, to stay always in Him. Because He will keep us. That's what we read in the first half, right? That those who do, after hearing His words, then their foundation is built on a solid rock. But if we don't practice our faith, if we don't build up our faith, then we are on no foundation. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Here's another type of flood. Pastor Isaac talked about it at the latter portion of his morning message today. For those who weren't here, the Spirit will summarize it here in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. But the Spirit distinctly says that in the latter times some shall fall away from the faith, paying attention to misleading spirits and teachings of demons, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having been branded on their own consciousness. That is what it means to pursue anything but the way. To pursue yourself, to pursue knowledge, to pursue the things of the world, anything that is not of the way, you are branded by your own conscience. You cause yourself to be guilty, is what it's telling us here. The Spirit is warning that in the latter times, many will fall away. Yes, sir. Pursuing things that they think is crucial for their salvation. Knowledge is what people pursue now. And they beat people upside the head with knowledge. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. But they themselves don't have love. What profits us